Welcome to Evolvepreneur Podcast Channel. My very special guest today is Dr. Bruno Cignacco, which I'm sure I pronounced, I don't know how close I got, who's an international business consultant, international speaker and business coach. Welcome, Bruno, to the show.
Thank you for your invite. Thank you very much.
Sure. So let's just dive into your bio a little bit here. So for 20 years, you've advised and trained hundreds of companies on international trade activities and international marketing. He's also a university lecturer. He's a senior fellow of the Higher Education Academy. He's also an author of a business and personal development book, which we can talk about today. And his new book's called The Art of Compassionate Business. So welcome again to the show, and let's dig into compassion. That's an interesting subject.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, compassion is a very important subject, but it's not so well discussed in business. And why does this happen? I was asking me this question 3 years ago, and I observed that many companies are not acting in a compassionate way. You might have seen, for example, in the news, companies that are firing employees without mercy, companies that are deceiving customers, companies that are polluting the environment. These are examples of non-compassionate companies. And I was devoted to researching on this topic, and I wanted to know more about companies that can be also profitable and compassionate business oriented. And I discovered a group of companies that is continually increasing that are focusing on what we call the triple bottom line, focusing on profit. This means the economic result, more market share, more sale, more profit, focusing also on people. This means caring for different stakeholders, individuals and groups with interest in our organization, such as internal stakeholders, employees, and external stakeholders, such as suppliers, buyers, business partners, community, and also companies that care for the planet, that are environmentally friendly. This is quite important topic, and we shouldn't be talking about this topic because this should be common sense and commonplace.
Yeah,
but we still have many companies that are not acting in a compassionate way. And this doesn't make any sense from the business perspective. When you have a wider perspective on business, why? Because no company can survive on its own. No company can survive by itself. This means that company need suppliers, need buyers, need employees, need community members to thrive. There is a situation of interdependence between the company and different stakeholders. And many companies only focus on these key performance indicators such as profitability, productivity, and efficiency, and they do not understand that these indicators are always the natural result of robust long-term relationship with the stakeholders. So this is a very interesting topic, and I wanted to introduce this in this way. And a very important question for the listener: how can companies become more compassionate in their business journey?
And that's an interesting subject, because I've been doing a bit of reading on Simon Sinek recently, and he talks about the why, right? Why business, the why of the business. And it's very interesting when you look at things like, there was a case study about Walton, when they had Walmart, and when the founder died, the son who took over, they said nothing was going to change. They completely changed, and they became, the employees became mistrustful of them, and they did so many bad things along the way that even certain towns, when they went to put a warehouse there, they would revolt against it. And so you can't put a warehouse because you mistreat your employees and stuff. And I think that's I think the why that they run the business is really important. And I think that's where some of these companies start off well, and then somewhere along the line they go off the rails, and I think it's because they got a very fuzzy why. I mean, you look at Facebook, for example, right? Facebook has got a very fuzzy why because they're very worried about their competitors. So the theory is that if you're really worried about your competitors, you've got a very fuzzy why. And I think
very important. I agree with you. And also, the why shouldn't be only focused on economic aspects, shouldn't be focused only on getting more profit, growing globally, but also should be focused also on non-economic aspect. For example, bringing about a positive impact on society, bringing about a positive impact on the ecosystem. So shouldn't be limited to economic aspect. What I see is that many companies fail to become a compassionate organization. Why? Because they focus only on quantitative aspect of business, what can be measured, what can be counted. For example, profit, market share, sales, and they forget the other aspect of business that are so important as well, like qualitative aspect of business, such as empathy, care, commitment, loyalty, camaraderie, support. And there should be a balance between quantitative aspect of business, what can be measured, what can be counted, and qualitative aspect of business. A famous thinker observed, not everything that counts can be counted, not everything that can be counted count. Companies should focus more on qualitative aspect of business because by doing so, they will nurture this relationship with the stakeholders. And this is quite interesting because according to research, there is a famous principle in social psychology that is called the principle of reciprocity.
Yep.
When companies develop long-lasting relationship with the stakeholder, when they treat the stakeholders in a loving, in a supportive, in a compassionate manner, these stakeholders tend to reciprocate. They tend to act alike. They tend to support the company when the company needs them. Instead, when a company dismisses this stakeholder, when they treat them in a disrespectful way, in a deceptive way, these stakeholders tend to withdraw. They tend not to cooperate. And there are many business cases that certify this. For example, in the case of Whole Food, in their beginning stage, they have some challenges. There have been some problems with some shops. They were affected by flood and so on. And because the company nurtured very strong relationship with the stakeholders, suppliers, buyers, these buyers and suppliers supported this company because this company was in need. There was a previous investment of this company on this valuable relationship. And these stakeholders didn't have any problem to cooperate, to assist this company when they need it. So it's important to understand that in business, the most important factor is the human being. It's not the economic factor, as many companies will think. The economic factor is a natural side effect, natural repercussion, natural consequence of caring for relationship. When you nurture relationship, when you make this relationship stronger, when you brighten this relationship over time, this economic indicator will be achieved in an effortless manner. Instead, when you focus solely in an excessive way on the indicators, profitability, productivity, efficiency, and other indicators, you tend to dismiss this relationship that are the basic material, the raw material of any business activity.
It's interesting too. I was reading the same book actually talked about debt collection. So this woman was working for a debt collection company, and obviously debt collection is very based on numbers, right? Like how much money did you get back and all this sort of stuff. And this particular person actually started her own debt collection company, and their measurement wasn't anything. It was a bit unusual. They measured how many thank you cards they sent out. So that was the measurement, not how much money they collected, but how many thank you cards they actually sent out. And apparently become the most productive and the most successful debt collection company in America because they actually cared about the customer. So when they rang up and said, why can't you pay your debt? They didn't just try and be nasty to them. They actually trying to find a way that they could, get the debt paid, but being nice to them, not being nasty to them. And it's the exact example of what you're talking about. You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, right? It's a good old
Exactly. But let's give an example, a very simple example. Supposing that the customer comes to your company and you treat this customer as it was the only customer. So you are caring for their needs. You try to sell products that are suitable for them, not for your company, not the one that you will get more profit. You try to adopt a serving attitude, not a selling attitude. You don't try to force them into buying anything. You try to add value to them. You try to give more than expected. This means try to create a positive imbalance. For example, if the customer take a product, let's say a computer, you can provide this customer with a training course free or delivery free. This customer will feel exhilarated, will feel delighted, and will feel indebted with this company and will try to compensate this imbalance. How? For example, coming back, for example, leaving positive reviews, or for example, recommending this company to others, becoming a silent ambassador regarding this company. So this is a very simple example of how you can switch from a selling perspective, self-centered, to a serving perspective. And when we're talking about service, we're not talking about servitude. But we're talking about adding value, solving the problems, making customer experience a positive emotion all over the process, because customer should experience positive emotion pre-sales, before buying the product, during the buying process, and post-sales. And how many customers you see that are complaining, they're angry with companies? This is not customer satisfaction. Companies should under-promise, I always say, under-promise, be humble with their promises, and over-deliver. So should always be humble. Try not to exaggerate their claims, their promises, their proposition, but at the same time, create what we call positive disconfirmation. In marketing, we call positive disconfirmation when you exceed customer expectation. Any company can satisfy customer need, but the challenge is to exceed, to go further, to surprise this customer in a positive way. This is a very good example of supporting customer and behaving with this customer in a compassionate way.
It's actually interesting in Australia, like we had a thing called JobKeeper. So when the pandemic first hit, the government decided they were going to pay the employers the money to keep the employees on board so they didn't lose them, right? Which was a very smart thing to do. I think it was probably the smartest thing they did because they stopped that bleed of employees going to the unemployment office. And there was a lot of money paid. Like they were paying like $1,500 Australian per fortnight to these. So there were some people getting more money, right? Some people actually getting paid more money, and they had to pay them that amount of money. So people got pay rises, all sorts of things. But what happened was when it was over and they had ranges when they started dropping off this JobKeeper payments, some companies actually did better during the pandemic than they expected. So what they did is they returned the JobKeeper money to the government. They actually paid it back. They didn't ask for it, they just gave it back. And there was billions and millions of dollars. Like I think it cost the government about $120 billion to do this. So people handing back millions of dollars and say, look, we didn't really need it. Here you go, you have it back. And so to me, like those businesses, to me, like if you look back inside them, I bet you they're very compassionate and very sort of caring about things, because most businesses would not give back a cent, right? It would never give back any money you got.
It's not common. Yeah, good. Yes. And also, and you were talking about the government supporting companies with their employees. Well, employees are the most important factor alongside customer in any company. Employees, I see some companies that treat employees like a means to an end, like a machine with no emotion. They cannot experience any emotion in the business environment and in the work environment. But these employees have to give their best. They cannot fail. They cannot make mistakes. They have to work overtime. And they cannot complain. They are not also allowed to give any opinion on important decisions. This is not a way to acknowledge employees' needs. Companies should be caring and nurturing with employees' relationship. Why? There is research on this. When a company develops a compassionate business environment, a nurturing business environment, an environment that is supportive, according to research, Barsade and O'Neill observed that this business environment tend to bring about higher employee satisfaction, higher customer satisfaction, lower employee turnover, lower employee absenteeism, lower stress levels, and all these indicators impact positively on the bottom line. So this means being compassionate also bring about profits, bring about more sales. Why? Because when employees, a very simple statement, when employees is happy, when employees feel recognized, when the employees is realized, what happened? This employee tend to treat customer in a better way, tend to relate to supplier in a better way. When employee is dissatisfied, is angry, is resentful, this employee cannot give their best. Research also corroborated the fact that when employees is fearful, and you see many companies that have a fearful workplace, fearful shut down your creative skills. Why? Because you tend to focus on the threat. Will I be fired? Will I keep my job?
Don't you, basically?
So will this colleague of mine will take my job? So these are threats, perceived threat that in some cases could be very real, that make this employee focus their attention on what is the threatening factor instead of focusing on developing new products, new ideas, new services. So we have to be very careful on how we treat employees, treating in a respectful way, allowing them to participate in the important decision. Many employees are only suffering from this decision already made on the top level. Why don't we make a company that is much more participative and inclusive? This means that different decisions that are affecting different level of this company hierarchy, different employees should be participating, having a cross-departmental meeting where all employees from different areas and departments can be given their opinion on relevant decisions. What we see in many companies is the opposite. Decisions centralized on the top, decisions that are not, nobody can give their view on this decision because The people on the top, they are the know-it-all experts, and they don't allow anyone to give their view. And this is not a compassionate environment. And a compassionate work environment brings about also a compassionate business, because what you see within a company then tend to spill over the business environment, either negative or positive.
So do you think that it's got better or worse over the years? I think, obviously post-industrialization and stuff like that, where you got, in the worker kind of scenarios where there used to be factory workers, it was a whole different story. But now it's a very different collaborative environment a lot of times. So I think it's the measurement. Is it the measurement of the money that's the problem? It's like very funny, because they said that if the animals that get killed in the world, for example, good example, right? If they're worth more alive than dead, they wouldn't kill them.
Okay.
Right? And so our measurement of what that is, our way society measures it at the end of the day, is what people follow, right? So if money's important, which obviously, in the world it is, then, like a couple of hundred years ago, money wasn't that important, right? It wasn't something that related, was just used to swap things around. You didn't have to worry about money. But now, because of that money scenario and survival and that sort of thing.
Yeah, there are different factors that prevent companies from becoming compassionate. So one of the factors is that all the words that we use in the business field, you use words like strategy, tactics. I like this word because they're very important to plan ahead, but this comes from military discipline. So and also outbeating competitors, outpacing competitors, always try to defeat other organizations. When you have this competitive mindset, which is important in some cases, you cannot think about collaboration. You cannot think about joint ventures. You cannot think about strategic alliances or partnerships. So, and this is very important because the world is interconnected today. You have hyper competition. You have even if you are a local company, you will be competing with companies from other countries. And partnerships are so important. Partnership not only with other organizations selling similar products or services, but partnership with suppliers, with the community, with institutions, with the government. And we see many companies that have only what I call a scarcity mindset. Mm-hmm. I will win, you will lose. Win-lose agreements. And me as a company, I will sell a product that I will get all the profit at the expense of your losses as a customer. This win-lose agreement in any stage of the business project cannot work at all. Why? Because the long-term relationship, the one that are sustainable, that are robust over time, tend to be only focused on win-win agreements. Everyone is winning. Mm-hmm. So I feel this is one of the problems, but also I see in the business environment, people cannot talk about but rational aspects. So for example, smart objectives that can be measurable, that can be specific, time-related, and also budgeting, everything that can be measured, that can be rationally analyzed, but they forget the emotional aspects. There are many studies on emotional intelligence at work and in business. And emotional intelligence is so important because according to research, most of the decisions, I would say all of them, are based on emotional basis. So they have an emotional basis. This means that emotions are the basis of any decision, business one and non-business one. And you see many companies that do not care for the emotional aspect of business. For example, treating employees in a disrespectful way, this means that they're not acting in an emotional intelligent way. This means that they're not caring for employees. And what I want to say is that there are many studies on emotional intelligence in business that observe, again, that emotions are infectious, are contagious. So when you treat people and you're experiencing positive emotion, people tend to pick up this emotion. They tend to experience the similar emotions and they tend to treat you alike. So when you treat people in a caring way, you are feeling happy to treat others in a respectful way. They tend to feel also satisfied, happy, at ease. You can bring about in the workplace what we call psychological safety. People are not fearful. They feel at ease. They feel comfortable. They can be themselves. Instead, in fearful work environment, the opposite happens. Everyone feels threatened. Everyone feels like they have to escape or have to protect themselves or defend themselves from others.
So do you think employees try to take advantage of that situation then? If a company's compassionate, do you think that becomes a problem? The employee kind of just bludges essentially and doesn't do anything? Do you think that's...
Well, this could happen, depend on the attitude. This depends on the attitude because, as I always say, the changes start with the individual. So if the individual behave in a egotistical way, in a self-centered way, well, this individual will bring about negative ripple effects. But the individual bring about a positive emotion in the working environment, try to cooperate. They understand that they are also interdependent. In the workplace, no business project can be undertaken by one person. Everything is collective work. If they understand that it's like a computer, you need all the keys in the keyboard. It's not one key that is more important than the others. So we have to understand that work is a collective work. Mm-hmm. The workplace is a collective environment where everyone is contributing. And for the benefit of each individual, everyone should be supporting each other. And the same happens in the business environment. From the wider perspective, when a company is supporting suppliers, customers, the community, everyone is benefiting. So interdependent, I think that many companies forget the concept of interdependence that was mentioned a long time ago by Stephen Covey, that I like to paraphrase a philosopher that observed, no man is an island. I would like to say, no company is an island. So no company can survive on its own. They need suppliers, buyers, employees. And in the workplace also, no department is an island. So you need other departments, you need other people to help you because the world is becoming more interconnected. The work projects are also much more complex and need the participation from different experts and especially of different disciplines. So I feel that missing the principle of interdependence is what makes companies focus only on their own objectives and make people focus on their own objectives. And this is very difficult to bring about a positive business environment and a compassionate workplace.
So do you think, obviously it's coming from the top, like as you said before, it's common sense, and at the end of the day, like anybody that's human understands that if you basically do these basic stuff, it'll come back on you. Like, at the end of the day, it's all called karma, right? So do you think there's an underlying reason why these big businesses are getting to a point where they're becoming so predatory and they're so determined to kind of rule the world? Is that just probably just a couple of egomaniacs going crazy, or do you think it's that there's more? Let's say, for example, what do you think is the percentage of businesses that are compassionate as opposed to the ones that aren't? Is it 50?
It's difficult to estimate the percentage, but what I can say is that there is, over time, over the last few decades, there is an increasing number. You see in different sectors. I give you some example. Company like Patagonia is a company that is very well known, and they are developing cloth products. This company has an inside nursery. So this means when employees go to work, they don't have to worry about where they leave their children. This is already paid by the company, set up by the company so that employees during their break time, they can visit their children inside in the workplace. Isn't that wonderful? But this is only one company among many companies in the sector. On the other side, you see the other examples, non-compassionate ones of companies that are having sweatshops where employees are exploited. They have a condition of slavery when they're producing the goods, and the factories have conditions of that are not meeting the requirements of safety and security. So you have the two extremes. I think that is becoming much more polarized. But I think that over time we will see that is the whole perspective, the whole trend is toward compassionate business, because when many companies are setting up this example, many companies sooner or later will have to catch up. I would like to meet you in 10 years' time, and we will talk probably about another topic. Hopefully this will be a dream come true, because we shouldn't be talking about compassionate business.
In this day and age, right? In this day and age. Maybe we should have I was just thinking, maybe we should have a compassionate tax, right? So basically, if your compassionate level's too low, you pay more tax. That would probably get them moving, wouldn't it?
Yes, could be. But companies won't do this spontaneously. Will be doing this out of fear. And I feel that also, I talk about this in the book, The Art of Compassionate Business, that should be a much more spontaneous, natural attitude. For example, because
it should come from a good place. It shouldn't come from being forced into it. Like that's the
problem. Exactly. Because being forced never works. Never work for sales. Never work for example, treating employees and try to make them meet the objectives or the deadlines. So I think that in business there is an instrumental view of business. So what I mean by instrumental view of business. You treat people as a means to an end. So this means, for example, when I am the boss and I talk to the employee, I don't want to know how they are. I don't know how they are dealing with these challenges, these current challenges. But I only want them to tell me about the report that I requested yesterday, and I want to know if they are meeting the deadline. So this is that the employee is a means, an instrument to an end. Meeting the deadline, getting the report. The same happens with customers. Customers are considered as faceless figure in a data bank. So we contact customers not only to know their needs, try to meet their requirement, their expectation, try to add value to them. They are only a means, an instrument to an end, more profit, more sales. And customers realize this, they feel this when companies trying to utilize them, when companies do not really care for them. They say, okay, I cannot sell to this customer. Next, please, next customer. They do not care. They treat customer in an impersonal way. They send unsolicited messages. They offer products that they do not even need. So these customers, when they feel that they are treated as instrument, as means to an end, try to look for companies that have a much more personalized approach, that have much more caring approach, because you have a lot of competition in any sector. And when you discover that the differentiating factor of any business activity is the relationship, not the product itself, the product could be important, but the relationship also adds value. If you have product A and B that are similar, but company offering the product B has a personalized relationship, and company offering the product A has an impersonal relationship, as a customer, I will choose a second company because I feel that there is a personal bond, a personalized bond. I might care more for this company instead of the first company. So it's all about relationship. And relationship should be nurtured. And relationship, the basis of any relationship, the most important factor for success is that the needs of both parties are met. When only one party meets its needs, this relationship is not a relationship, it's a transaction. It's a one-off transaction.
It's actually, I was thinking about Amazon because it's an interesting sort of case study, because when you look at Amazon, they're, in terms of the customer, right, and I'm at both ends of this thing because we also act as an affiliate and that situation, and they treat affiliates like you're trying to rob them all the time. Like, it's very interesting that it's caustic, it's horrible relationship with Amazon, with affiliates, sort of a hate relationship there. But the interesting thing with the customer side of it, they will refund freight, they'll do everything possible for the customer. So that customer side, they've got that nailed. Like,
yes, and also I agree.
They don't treat employees well because they've got a bad rap for that. And you think yourself, they've got it half right, but they didn't quite get there, you know what I mean?
I agree. And Amazon, in the case of Amazon, they have a personalized relationship with customer to such extent that, for example, when you buy a product using for example, you sign in and you buy a product, the system and the algorithm of this platform allow you to see recommended products that are especially to you according to your previous purchases. So this cannot be more personalized than this. No. So this means that the product that Amazon suggests according to their algorithms and systems to you will be different from the product that is suggested to a different customer that bought different products in the past. So this is a personalized approach.
But I mean, they'll also, like my son used to buy quite a lot from him, and if he complained about something, they'd either immediately refund it or give him free freight. They would always, the customer service side of it, to Amazon, the customer is primary. But it seems to be like the cog in the engine, you know, like they seem to treat them completely differently. And I'm thinking to myself, why do they get it so wrong in that respect?
I agree. And why is so important to treat customer well? We mentioned this before, but customers, when you interact with customers, we have in marketing what we call touch points. So touch points is any interaction between a company and customers. So for example, you check the company website, this will be an interaction. This is a touch point. You get in contact for the first time with the company. You call the company on the phone, another touch point. You, for example, go to the shop offline, another touch point. Customer in any touch point experience emotions. Could be positive or negative. Positive, they feel happy. Negative, they feel angry, they feel resentful, they feel fearful. Companies should make their best for this customer in each touch point to experience positive emotion. And Amazon nailed this down very, very clearly. Why? Because if customer has a product that is defective or they don't like, they can return. They allow them to return with no charge. And this is bringing about positive emotion, because sending the product with no charge, with no, without the need to complain, this is make things easier. And customer, when they feel positive emotion in each touch point, is more likely to love this company, to support this company, to recommend this company. The opposite happens when customer, for example, experience negative emotion in this touch point. I'll give you an example. Here, the airlines in Europe are very, in some cases, not well customer-oriented, especially the low-cost airlines. Why? Because when you want to change a flight, for example, you have a problem with the flight you want to change, you call the company on the phone and they keep you waiting for 25, 30 minutes with the music that is a bit annoying. Customer get a bit angry and bit upset. And when customers have the choice, will look for other organizations, other airlines instead of this one, because they don't want to feel negative emotion. What is customer satisfaction? Is feeling positive emotions about a product or a service or a company. It's nothing more, nothing less. But many companies focus so much on product, services, promotion, objective, and they dismiss this emotional aspect. Emotional aspects are very important. Many customers are prone to regret buying this product. How companies will deal with this regretfulness or this regret? Well, are companies facilitating the process of returning this product, of complaining? Can companies take complaint in a constructive way? Because many companies, I advise many companies on this, and they say, oh, we're receiving a lot of complaints. And I will say, well, this is a good sign, because you have a lot of feedback, a lot of feedback to improve. If the customer don't complain, you will get out of business without knowing why. So at least you know you have the valuable information. Complaints, I always tell my clients, is gold. It's gold hidden within it. It's very important. So to improve.
When I took over an accounting company quite a few years ago now, they had a really bad reputation in terms of customer service. The product was unstable, it was really bad. And the way they treated the customers essentially lied to them. They basically said it was not a problem, right? And in the end, they said to us, we have 2,000 bugs in our software, right? We know that, but we're not going to tell them that. So they lied to them. And so when I took over the company, I said, well, I employed a customer complaints officer who then rang them, and they had a stack of complaints this high, like it was massive. We were something like the 19th distributor in the world in terms of sales, right? So in the next 2 years, we went from 19th to 3rd, because when he rang the customer and said, hey, what's your problem? And invariably it was, oh, you need to upgrade your software, you need to spend more money with us. You know, our sales went up exponentially, and at the same time the customers got happier and stayed, and then our sales went up, right? And the company changed its entire attitude, and to a degree the resellers changed their attitude, because suddenly we were working on solving the problems rather than hiding from them. And it made a massive difference. And I think that's the thing, is that we encourage complaints all the time, because every time someone complained, it meant we could try to improve it. You know, sometimes complaints, people love to complain, and it's like, well, you know, it's not much you can do about it in some respects, because maybe the complaint's valid, but it's not viable to do anything. But most complaints are great ideas. I found that most times when they give you a complaint, I hadn't thought of that. That's a good idea.
It's free research. I agree with you completely. Complaint from customer or complaint from any stakeholder, suppliers, community, or even any other stakeholder. It's business feedback, very important feedback, and it's free research, because you don't have to interview people, you don't have to conduct a research study to know what they feel or what they like. They're telling you in front of you, very clearly in your eyes, that they're not liking this product or this type of characteristic of this product. So this is very important. But also complaints in many cases, I saw this, they're the source of important innovative products. So company, when they take into account the complaint and analyze thoroughly, and they analyze this in a cross-departmental way, means people from the marketing department, people from the administrative department, people from the production department, they have a brainstorming session. They will analyze and say, oh, you know what? There is a grain of truth here. You know what? They are continually complaining. Can we change the design? They say that the product is breaking down every time that arrives at destination. Can we change the packaging? Is the packaging a bit is under packaging, means that they have a small packaging for this type of product? Or can we change the materials? Or is it possible to use a different function for this because customers say that it's difficult to manage this product? So free source of information for innovation. What can this be better than this?
Yeah, the names of babes, right? Sometimes these ideas come out, so you really should do this, and it's like, man, that would cost you thousands of dollars to figure something out when someone just basically came out as a bright idea. And I think that's the danger of being closed off about complaints. Making it easy to complain, I think, is a good thing.
Very important. And also, many companies, I see that they're not treating the customer in a compassionate way when they are not grateful. And gratitude is a very important quality of compassionate business. What do I mean by gratefulness or gratitude? For example, if customer came to your shop, even when they didn't buy any product, company should be grateful, should be appreciative. Why? Because they devoted their time to check the product, to examine the product, to compare options. Company never know if this customer might come back or might recommend this product they couldn't buy to another customer. So instead, but also company, I see that they're not grateful with the customer that buy product from them. For example, what they can do, they can send a personalized email or a thank you note to appreciate their custom. The same apply to employees. Many companies take employees for granted. They don't make them feel that they count. And when employees, how many employees you've seen that have been working overtime? They have been living their best at work. They have, in some cases, created an imbalance between the work task and the family life and so on. And companies don't even appreciate. I'm not talking about appreciative from the economic perspective, what is important, for example, paying, compensation, a bonus, but also what about organizing an event to recognize employees' contribution and make this public, recognize them one by one and on an individual level so that the employees feel that they count, they are acknowledged, and their contribution, when this is acknowledged, they tend to cooperate more, that is more. You see the opposite. Many companies, they do not care. They take for granted. They have a sense of entitlement. You say, we are paying a salary, the employees should do what they have to do. And they forget that the employees are individuals. They're not machinery, pieces of machinery or cogs in the organizational machinery that can be replaced and changed. They're individuals with social needs, economic needs, emotional needs, and they need to be acknowledged. They need to be respected. They have legitimate needs, and they need to be met.
So let's talk about your book, because I noticed it said The Art of Compassionate Business, so I think it's obviously a bit of a take on The Art of War, I'm guessing. I had a quick look at the book, and it looks like a big one. It's like about 300 pages long. So give me a bit of an outside look at the book and why you wrote it and what's it about without...
Yes, okay. Yeah, this is a very interesting question. We discussed some of the topic regarding my book in this conversation, but I want to mention that this book was originated as a consequence of an article that I read a couple of years ago that was titled The Human Moment at Work, published in Harvard Business Review. And I read this and I thought that this was insightful. The article was about the use of technology in the work environment and how the use of technology in some cases hinder the development of trust and cooperation bonds with employees. Why? Because you use so many emails, you use, for example, a lot of technology like text messages, but you miss the real contact. So, and I was intrigued. I said to myself, oh, this is interesting to research more. Let's look into different cases. And the book tenet, the main important tenet and principle is that love, I use the word love a lot in the book, and love is not only the sentimental aspect of love that you, for example, love that you feel for your family, your friends, your partner. This is a very important connotation of love. But also in the book, I use a much more much wider connotation of life, a humanistic one, which includes compassion, care, support, camaraderie, empathy, and this can apply to business, relationship, and non-business one. Because in practice, before being workers, we are human beings. Before being suppliers, we are human beings. Before being bosses or CEOs, we are human beings. We have a common humanity, and we all have fears, we have expectations, we have dreams, we have setbacks, we have positive experiences, we have negative experiences. In some cases, we fail. In some cases, we succeed. We have a common humanity. But what you see in the business environment is that many companies try to focus only on the role. On the role, for example, this is the manager, this is the supplier, this is the subordinate. The roles are important, but behind the role, there is a human being. And when you nurture much more natural conversation with a human being, when you, for example, foster relations that are much more, for example, mutually beneficial, a win-win relationship with these stakeholders, the business environment and the work environment tend to be much more thriving. Instead, when you focus only on this economic aspect like profitability, productivity that we mentioned before, these relationships tend to be left aside. In business, you have two main aspects. In any transaction or any business deal, you have two main aspects. You have substantive aspect, price, delivery, quality, and you have relational aspect, which implies, for example, the development of psychological contract with different stakeholders, which implies commitment, loyalty, truthfulness, authenticity. Many companies focus only on the substantive aspect of business, price, quality, and they dismiss the relational aspect of business. And you cannot strive without relationships in business because no company is self-sufficient, no company is self-reliant. How can a company succeed without supplier, without employees, without community? It's impossible to think about. But we have such narrow mind in business, many cases. Companies focus only on this substantive aspect and they're dismissing the most important aspect, in my opinion, the relational aspect. In the book, I mentioned different aspects like generosity in business, compassion in business, gratefulness in business. I talk about also the importance of fostering a positive emotion in business. I talk about natural conversation, and some of the chapters are about mission, the importance of a meaningful mission, the importance of innovation in business. It's a very complete book with many appendices. It's quite insightful.
Sounds comprehensive, and I think it's probably a good place to start, right? That's part of the scenarios of figuring something out. Is if you've got a good foundation, a blueprint, at least you can work from there, can't you? Like you don't leave them wanting at the end.
I agree. The book, I can define the book in very simple terms. The book includes perennial principles, timeless principles. You have lots of books that are about strategy, tactics, for example, business models. These are very good books. But what I'm talking about here is principles or values that you can apply today. You can apply 20 years later, and they will still apply. They don't get outdated and can be applied. Principles like compassion, support, camaraderie, respectfulness can be applied by companies in any sector of any size. So this is what made the book a bit outstanding in a way that there are principles that companies can always keep handy and can also foster in the work environment and the business environment because they're the principles that should underpin any business strategy, any business tactics, any business plan.
Makes sense. Cool. So, in summary, and I think what we're probably need to come to is, what do you think the individual, I guess the business owner or the person needs to do to kind of drive this compassion forward? Obviously, number one is buy your book, right? That will help. But do you think one thing they could probably do tomorrow that would help drive this mission a little bit?
Very important question. So I will say you can start with a very simple tip, a very actionable tip. Try to think how you can be more generous in the work environment and in the business environment. And when we're talking about generosity, it means focusing on others. And this means trying to give others something of value for them. This could be tangible things. For example, if you're the boss, you can give employees a pay rise or a compensation. But the most important things in many cases are intangible. For example, if you are the boss, can you give an ear if the employee has some problems? Can you listen to their worries, their complaints, their their expectations? Can you give an ear? Can you give support to a colleague? Can you give some valuable information to a supplier for them to improve their business model? Can you give some additional services, free services, for example, delivery services to customer? So being generous always pays off. Why? Because you create a positive imbalance, and then the other party tend to feel indebted and tend to reciprocate. They tend to give you back. In some cases, they give you back in a direct way. In other cases, customer cannot give you back directly, but they might recommend another customer. And this is also a way of giving back. So a very important question for self-reflection is, how can I be more generous? But also, how can I be more grateful in the workplace and in the business environment? We try to foster generosity and gratitude. These are two important starting points for any business activity.
So it's very interesting, because when a business, I have this theory that money is an exchange of energy. And so at the end of the day, all it really is money doesn't really exist, right? Businesses don't even exist, by the way. Like in some respects, businesses, the companies and stuff were created so that the owners could avoid being in trouble, being limited liability, like getting sued for something, right? So the reality is all money is an exchange of energy, because we believe the money's real. Otherwise, it's not real. Paper's not worth the paper it's printed on, right? So I think if you work on money as the exchange of energy, and that exchange then becomes part of the process, and I think that's the difference, because I think when you just look at it purely as a money number, it's not worth anything, but it's actually an energy source for lots of reasons. And I think that's probably, to me, that's why I've always sort of adopted it. And we have situations like, I always talk to clients when they say to me, when we do projects, we say, well, it's all up front. I don't do debt collection, I don't do terms, I don't do anything, it's all up front. And they go, well, hang on a minute, how do I know you're going to do it? All that sort of stuff. I say, well, it's an exchange. Money's an exchange of energy. You give me the money, I'll then go and do the job as best I can. And I don't have to worry about, chasing you for money or trying to hit these milestones or anything like that. It's all about focus on, you pay me the money, I'll go do the job. And I think that's the difference in society, is that people adopt the wrong principle towards that money. It's a wrong attitude.
I agree. It's important. In addition to this, money, as you said, is energy, but also I want to say that also everything is energy, and also people are not instruments. We have to also bear in mind what we said before. A very important question for listeners is, how can I consider this stakeholder as an end instead of a means to an end? How we will put this in practice? For example, how can I know more about this employee? Not only talking to this employee, but to meet the deadline, to meet the company's objective. But how can I know more about this employee, their worries, their concerns, their family issue that could be affecting their personal life? By knowing so, you will nurture this relationship with the stakeholder. This can apply to any other stakeholder, but it's important to have much more authentic and humane relationship with different stakeholders. This is a thing that is missing nowadays in business.
And I think you're right. I mean, I think at the end of the day is it's common sense, right? So at the end, and I think and I read a book of Tony Robbins years ago, and one of the things he said, to be a better person or a better business person, ask better questions. And I think that's what it comes down to, is you ask better questions, you'll get a better result.
Very important.
Yeah. So so to wrap up, so there's your book that's called The Art of Compassionate Leadership. That's correct, right? Yeah.
Compassionate Business.
Compassionate Business, okay. And then there's a website called humanorientatedenterprise.com.
Human-oriented.
Yep, and then there's your website and your name. So what we'll do is we'll put them up in the show notes and stuff like that, so they can have a look, and we'll also put a link to your book so they can have a look at that as well. So
thank you very much.
I'm really grateful. Let's say use the words grateful. Really grateful for you coming on board today and having talked about this. I think it's an interesting subject, and it's certainly something that we probably never really thought about or talked about on the podcast before. So it's fantastic to be able to bring this subject up.
Thank you for your invite. I'm very grateful too. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bruno. Talk to you soon.
Thank you.